Hey y'all, welcome to day 2 with my Mustang Odyssey, who I'm training for the Mustang Classic. On this day we moved him to one of the smaller Mustang pens we had attached to the round pen. We figured that each horse would get a turn in the round pen, and since Odyssey was in the round pen for day 1, we moved him into one of the smaller ones. I started off with teaching Odyssey how to send. This is the next building block that I use when teaching a horse to lead. It's really easy to do in a smaller space. And so I started off by holding up my hand and putting a little feel on the lead rope and not releasing until he moved forward. This way he understands that pressure on his pole means he's meant to go forward. So I just started by sending him left and right and asking him to stop and yield to that pressure. The really nice thing about Odyssey is he isn't one of those Mustangs that seems to forget things while I'm gone. It actually almost feels like he's learning when I'm not there. Every time I come back and start a new session, he starts the session not just 100% of where he was before, but almost 110%. It's a really nice feeling. So here I begin another exercise that builds up to leading. Odyssey still isn't super sure and thinks about bolting away, but every time he feels the pressure on the halter, he stops. And so I give him a good reward when he does. So basically what I'm doing is walking circles around him, getting him to yield his hindquarters. I'm also trying to drive him forward, and as soon as he takes a few steps forward with his forelegs, I release. As I'm walking, I start to put pressure on his pole. This becomes his cue to lead forward. I keep a steady, gentle pressure on him, even if he starts fighting me because he doesn't understand. And as soon as he comes off that pressure, I reward. Here when I release because Odyssey moved forward, he thought he was free and started to leave. He then felt the pressure on the halter and decided to spin. I was able to flip it over his head pretty quickly. There's another exercise I'll do to teach them not to spin and bolt, where I put the lead rope behind their hindquarters and have them spin around away from me. This teaches them to follow the pressure of the lead rope wherever it's coming from. If the opportunity presents itself where the horse spins around and the lead rope is behind their hindquarters, I will try to do it that way. If not, I don't worry too hard. I can do the exercise later as well. Here he took some really good steps forward, so after giving him a release, I decided to start working on touching him. The only thing I'm asking him to do here is stand still and look at me. I want to reprogram his brain. Instead of instantly saying no, that's scary, that he starts to say maybe a little more. If I can get him to say maybe and think about checking me out, I start to interest his curiosity. Then I can turn this into a yes answer. After a little bit of this back and forth where he was figuring out what he was meant to do, he decided to bridge the gap. The rules right now are that he's not meant to spin around because that's dangerous.
I'm just waiting for the charge.
Here's where, to no one's surprise, the teeth started to come out. I could have reacted quicker and probably sent him away. Instead, I just went back to touch his nose again to teach him that wasn't going to get him a huge release. Now, this is definitely the weirdest thing I've had a Mustang do. While it's very common for them to stick their lip up and do what's called the Flehmen response, which they do while processing new smells, I have never seen one clack their teeth like that. I ended the session there because I didn't have much time to begin with, and he was really good. I came back later in the afternoon, and again I was pleasantly surprised at how much he remembered and how much he seemed to have learned while I was gone. He is a really smart horse. So again, I started off with the same leading exercise, getting him unstuck and moving forward. It is also very interesting how he likes to have a low headset when I give him a release. I don't mind it because it seems to me like he's thinking and processing really well. The goal when I apply any pressure on the horse is to get the horse to come off the pressure. This refers to the moment that the horse releases whatever pressure you have on them. When I put pressure on the lead rope, I don't want him to move forward while still keeping the lead rope taut. I want him to move forward fast enough that he actually puts slack in the lead rope himself. That's what I mean when I refer to coming off the pressure. This creates a horse that is truly soft and willing. One thing you have to be careful about the biters is letting them use their mouthy behavior to keep you from touching their face. What they're trying to do is protect themselves, and they see your hand as a threat. If they learn that using their mouth gets their hand away from their face, that can become a dangerous behavior. So while it's really cute when he starts to do the Flehmen response, I make sure to quickly go back and pet his face so he doesn't learn that gets him a huge release. That was really good for him, so once he did that, I gave him a release and then went to work on leading again. It's harder to do in these smaller pens, but he slowly started to chain together more and more steps. So again, when he does this with his mouth, I go right back to touching his face again. He thinks about nipping here, but doesn't actually try, so I don't send him away this time. So I just wait until he isn't doing any mouthy behaviors while I'm trying to pet him to release and reward. Here's where it started to get interesting. Every now and then when your hand switches eyes on their face, they start to get scared. In this case, he started to feel trapped, and I might have had too tight of a hold on the lead rope. He started dodging left and right. At this point, he started becoming fussier and fussier. I'll explain why in a minute. He tried to bite me, and so I sent him away. This is the safest and kindest way I know how to teach him it's not an acceptable behavior and it's not going to get him a release. I don't hit them or jerk on them. I just send them around and have them move their feet. Every now and then he would pull on the halter, and when I held tight, he would jerk himself back. At this point, he started becoming fussy with his face. I think his head was hurting after halter breaking yesterday, which makes a lot of sense. It would probably make his face sore. That's why I tried to keep this day very light. But at this point, he started becoming fussy because he didn't like the feeling of the halter on his sore face, so he started tossing his head side to side. What I ended up doing is switching tactics. Because he clearly wasn't comfortable with me touching him with my hand, and it wasn't going very well, I decided to start using the stick. The stick and string is one of my favorite Mustang gentling tools. I like it because it's easy to control so you don't accidentally poke them, and the string is removable. The string is also very useful for desensitizing and getting a horse used to haltering. When I started using the stick, it was an instant improvement. Odyssey was much happier with that. The reason horses oftentimes like to be introduced to touch with a stick before your hand is because it puts you at a farther distance from the horse. This makes them feel less threatened. That way they can get used to something reaching out and touching them while you're still a safe distance away. It also protects you as the handler in case they decide to bite or strike. Every now and then I'd realize that I've skipped a step with the Mustang, and the horse always tells me to go back and fix it. This was a case of Odyssey trying to tell me that I had gone too far before going back and doing this basic step. I always listen to the horse. When they seem like they're doing a bad behavior, they're usually trying to communicate something. It's amazing what they'll tell you if you listen. This was really nice for him. Just the lightest feel on the lead rope and he was leading forward. Using the stick, I'm able to get him a lot more comfortable with touch, as well as touch all the way down his neck and shoulders. He's definitely more guarded on his left side, so I just have to work on that side a bit more. I just keep at it with the same process of approach and retreat, getting a little farther each time, but making sure he's calm and comfortable. The goal is always to find a nice spot to release where I've made a bit of progress, but he's also calm and relaxed. If I go too far and cause him to panic, that breaks trust and creates bad associations. When I say I don't like to have rodeos with my Mustangs, I really mean it. I want my sessions to be this calm and relaxed. When he starts doing behaviors like biting, head shaking, or trying to bolt away from me, I know something's wrong. I want him to be quietly learning and building trust in me. It isn't always possible, which you saw in our first leading session, but I think most of the time that's the fault of the trainer, and so that's something I'm always working on. However, when more exciting moments come up, I use them as an opportunity to teach Odyssey how to handle when he's afraid. I teach him to trust in me, and I teach him how to react in a way that isn't dangerous for the handler. The other nice thing about this stick is you can use it to scratch itchy horses, especially Odyssey because he's shedding right now. He's losing a lot of his winter coat. Before long, I was able to scratch him down his back with the stick. I'm glad that I listened to Odyssey telling me that I'd overfaced him and taken it back a step. I always try to break things down for horses to make it easier for them to understand. I find that most of the time, if they're not doing what you want, they're confused or afraid. This way I could get Odyssey used to touch with more positive associations. I always make sure to work both sides evenly. After I had taken it back a step and broke things down for him by using the stick to get him more used to touch, I decided he was ready to move up to just using my hand. However, he then decided to bite, so I started to send him around. I try and avoid punishment in my training as much as I can, but when a horse does something dangerous like that, I need to let him know that that was not okay. I try and do it in the softest way possible, however. All I want him to do is to move his feet so he realizes that was not the correct answer. This has worked on all of the aggressive Mustangs I've had that have tried to bite. Biting is something horses do to each other to create distance if they don't want the other horse in their space. When he tries to bite me, he is only trying to create distance because he is afraid. He is not malicious or anything. However, that doesn't change the fact that it's a dangerous behavior, and I would rather him react in other ways when he gets nervous. At the same time as I'm training him, he's training me to listen to his concerns better. When he starts to get nervous like that, I shouldn't keep pushing him to that point. Instead, I should take it a step back. So that's exactly what I did. I picked up the stick again to help him get used to touch in a way he's less afraid of. By going back and forth between my hand and the stick, I could help him bridge the gap and realize my hand isn't any more scary or harmful than this stick. Here I employed another tactic, which was just trying to ignore and redirect his mouthy behavior. By placing my hand firmly on his face and holding my wrist up, I could keep myself out of the way of his teeth. He displayed this weird behavior again. I'm honestly not sure why he was clacking his teeth together. So because I had scared him by moving my hand too fast on his cheek the first time, I went back to do this again. If he spooks at something and then I drop the issue, he learns that that thing is scary. However, if I come right back to it and show him that it is in fact not scary, he learns the correct thing. If he really wanted to bite me, he actually would. All of his bite attempts were threats. This was the closest he got. I think he got my shirt sleeve a little here. I also believe this was the last time he actually tried to bite me. Again, I took his feedback and went back to the stick. If I can touch him on the neck with the stick and then again with my hand, I can show him, see, it's just like the same thing. I felt like we'd reached a really good point in the day. He'd stopped biting me, and he'd learned a lot. He made some really nice progress on this day. He knew how to lead, and I could touch him on the neck on the right side. We also dealt with his biting, and he started to learn that that wasn't the answer. On this day was the last time he tried to bite me. Alrighty, y'all. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video in Odyssey's training series.